My dear brothers and sisters, it is Holy Thursday, and we enter into the Paschal Triduum, wherein we commemorate the passion, death, and resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. These are three most important dates in our celebration of our faith because we commemorate how Jesus won for us salvation. We begin this Triduum with the Lord's Supper. But before we look into the Lord's Supper, let us first look at the preparation made before the supper. Let us look into Matthew chapter 26, verse 17 and onwards. On the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the disciples approached Jesus and said, "Where do you want us to prepare for you to eat the Passover?" He said, "Go into the city to a certain man and tell him, 'The teacher says, my appointed time draws near. In your house I shall celebrate the Passover with my disciples.'" The disciples then did as Jesus had ordered and prepared the Passover. So, this meal that Jesus will be taking with his disciples is not any ordinary meal, but the Passover meal, which is an annual celebration commemorating the redemptive act of God for the Israelites who 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 was freed from the slavery of Egypt. And so they commemorate this salvation that the Lord has done for them every year through this Passover meal. And what is the preparation for a Passover meal? It is not just preparing a table or ordering food and having some wine for drinks. They have to prepare the Passover lamb. And how do they do the preparation of the Passover lamb? We can read from the Mishnah, which contains Jewish traditions, saying, "The Passover offering was slaughtered in three groups. When the first group entered in and the temple court was filled, the gates of the temple court were closed. The priests stood in rows, and in their hands were basins of silver and basins of gold. In one row, all the basins were of silver, and in another row, all the basins were of gold. An Israelite slaughtered his offering, and the priest caught the blood. The priest passed the basin to his fellow, and he to his fellow, each receiving the full basin and giving back an empty one. The priest nearest to the altar tossed the blood in one action against the base. When the first group went out, the second group came in, and when the second group went out, the third group came in. In the meantime, the Levites sang the Hallel. If they finished it, they sang it anew." So we see here from this writing describing the preparation of the Passover lamb, it took a certain process. So the Israelite, they get an unblemished lamb, bring it to the altar for sacrifice, bring it to the temple for sacrifice, and then they cut the throat. The priest will catch the blood with a silver or gold basin, and they will pass the basin to another priest, until it reaches to the altar, and the blood is thrown into the altar. And then they bring back, or they bring home the lamb, but outside the temple, they would skin the lamb. And after skinning the lamb, they would put the lamb on a stick. And how is the stick? According to the description of Justin the Martyr, he says, "For the lamb which is roasted and dressed up in the form of a cross. For one spit is transfixed right through from the lower parts up to the head, and the one across the back, and one across the back, to which are attached the legs of the lamb." So can you imagine the lamb that was sacrificed when they are leaving the temple are placed on a cross. They were carrying the lamb on a cross. Does it sound familiar? And so, my dear friends, so all this preparation foreshadows the crucifixion. All this preparation foreshadows the cross. And the death of Jesus by crucifixion is not by accident. It is part of God's plan. It is part of God's plan of having this paschal lamb placed on the shape of a cross, because the true paschal lamb, Jesus Christ, will also die on the cross. And so we see immediately here the connection between the Passover meal and the crucifixion. I will continue this reflection in my next video.